Here's the walkthrough for Edexcel's paper 3 from November 2023, Foundation. So question 1, nearly lost it. How to change a percentage into a decimal. Don't forget, just divide it by 100. Feel free to either work it out yourself or on a calculator. 8061 corrects the nearest hundred, so the 8's not going anywhere. It's all about in the tens column is a 6, which is why you take the 0 up to 1 to make 8,100. Question 3. No need to be a smart aleck. I'll just go for -6, even though there are infinite answers on that one. Question 4 does not have to be simplified. Notice it just says what fraction. So you could, because each row is repeated, you could just go across a row like that and give your answer as 2 out of 7. But if you did a full count and answer 6 out of 21, that's also perfectly fine. The value of the 9 is in the tenths column, so I'll just stick with saying what I see. Alternatives are acceptable. Question 6. Pretty wordy for an early question. As soon as I see a question like this, I don't actually read the information. I look at the key and start working out how many are actually in each row. So I've got 60 there, a quarter will be 3 there, so that's 36 plus 3. That's 12 plus 6. 24 banana cakes sold by year 7 use this information, so 24 required. So divide that by 12. We're needing 2 circles to represent 12 people each, 24 in total. Part B, they're comparing year 8s to year 7s. So year 7s, on your calculator, don't risk it. Year 7's total is 141. Which year sold the most? So state the obvious. Year 8 sold 150, year 7 141, year 8 sold more. If you want to go into extra detail, 7, another quite wordy one, but still not a bad one by any stretch. Top line doesn't tell us anything mathematical we can do. It's not until you read the second and third lines that he's swimming 178 lengths, 25 metres per length. So he's swum 4,450 metres so far. He wants to swim, so find out how much further he's got to go by doing a subtract. 3,600 metres to go, so 25 metres per length divided by 25. Only 144 lengths for him to swim. Number 8. So part A, it's going down in 6s. You could do it in words. I'll just stick to that. Question B, and I'm keeping an eye on question C as well. So I'm actually going to take away 6. There is a smart aleck way, because the answer is 12, let's be honest. Because if it's 6 per difference, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, there's 2 differences. But I'm going to work them out. Let's go the long-handed way. Let's take away 6. Let's take away 6. And let's take away 6. It confirms it as being 12 difference as well. But that also helps with part C, because you could go that it's missed out 52. And that's perfectly acceptable. Obviously, there's more complicated ways of doing it, There's more boffiny ways of doing it, but there we go. When you look at question 9, the first thing that stands out is the fact that we start in kilograms and it asks in grams later on. So you've got a decision to make, and my preference is to go from the top line. I've decided to go and work in grams, but either way is fine. It's calculator, so it doesn't matter. Going to decimals is not a big problem. So Mandy's dog has 3 meals a day and 105 grams per meal. So it's 315 grams of food per day. Moving on, we can take the 12,000 grams of food she's got and divide it by the 315. Horrible decimal, but it's not about that. Because don't forget, that's per day. That's per day. This is in days. How many complete weeks? So 5 weeks is 35 days. So although there's another 3 days worth of food, that wasn't the question. It asks for how many complete weeks. On to question 10. So, got a polygon, 5 sides. So we've got a pentagon. Here's a prism. So edges, don't forget, are the lines used to draw it. 5 at the front, 5 at the back, and 5 in between, giving us 15 lengths. So that is 15 multiplied by the 7.5. It's 112.5 centimetres. Question 11. To go from ratios to fractions, you need to know how many there are in total. So first of all, add them up. I get 25. And how many of them out of the 25 are green? That's 7. That's all you need. Again, don't overcomplicate. Chess match 3¼ hours. First thing I do is remind myself that that's 3 hours and 15 minutes. So add on 3 hours, we get, take off 3 hours, we get to 11:10. Take off 15 minutes, so 10 minutes takes you down to 11. So it's 5 minutes before 11, or in other words, 5 to 11, or 10:55. Question 13. These are all of the same kind, so you can simply go 8 plus 14, take away 2, which gives us 20 of them. And BIDMAS, let's do brackets first. If you add them together, you get 21y, but then you divide by 3. Question 14. My preference with questions like this is always to convert to decimals. So on your calculator, do top divided by bottom, 0.583 recurring, divide percentage to decimal, divide by 100, 6 divided by 11, that's 0.545454, and that one's a terminating decimal anyway. So now it's much easier. Think of it as cash. So 54 pence is the smallest, 6/11. 55 and a bit pence is next. So there, that's them gone. 56 pence is next. 57 pence is next. And 7/12 is the most. 15. Frequency trees, usually wordy, but an absolute goldmine of marks, one line at a time. Top two lines tell you nothing. It's not until you get to the third line it tells you that 64 are families, which means you can fill in the other bubble of 36. 11 of the 18 holidays abroad, so these two bubbles must add up to 18. 11 are for the couples, 7 goes in that other slot. And that has the knock-on effect that you can now fill in all the bubbles with a 25 for UK couples. Down the bottom, one of the holidays, so it's sold to a family only. We're only looking at the holidays to families. The probability that it is not abroad is the 57. They're the UK holidays. 16, solving. Not a friendly looking one, but don't panic. Subtract 9. Do the inverse operation. Subtract 9 from both sides. And if there's a divide by 7, we don't like it, so times both sides by 7. Question 17. First of the properly wordy questions with a lot going on. Same rules as previous videos apply, one line at a time. As soon as you see those top two lines, 32 hours a week, and there's the pay per week, do a divide. That will let you know that Blake is paid £14.79 per hour in the UK. Take that £14.79, let's change it into Australian dollars, and we get 26.5624. But we'll round off to the nearest, I'm assuming, cents. Let's call it that. So you've got that, which is what she's paid converted into Australian dollars. The new job would be $26.40. So as you can see, Blake thinks the rate is greater. Is Blake correct? No. Always state the obvious, but make sure you've got those two numbers for comparison. Question 18. Lots going off in this one. Pay particular attention to one line of symmetry. So W is repeated over there. 3.8 is repeated in there. Also, I'm not finished. I'm not going to read it just yet. That tells you this. Do 14 minus 2 lots of 3.8. We know that the base of this triangle is 6.4 centimetres. So job number 1, work out the area of the triangle. That's a half times the base times the height, 19.2. The area of the rectangle is 3.5 times, so we move on. 19.2 trebled-ish gives us 67.5 centimetres squared. And the definition of area for a rectangle is length times width. So 14 times W must equal this answer. So we need to do 67.5 divided by 14. That gives us W, which is 4.8 centimetres. On to number 19. So we've got front elevation of a cuboid. The volume of the cuboid as you can see, is 224. So what it doesn't tell you is the other dimensions. It tells us that the cuboid is 4 high. It tells us that it is 8 wide. So we know that the area of that is 32. So we divide by 32 because that will give us the third dimension of 7. So if you wanted to picture the actual cuboid, feel free. It's 4 high, as on the front elevation. It's 8 wide, but it's 7 from front to back. So if you're wanting to draw the plan view, that's the view from above, it's not the 4 that you'll be able to take into account. It's the 8 by 7. So you'll need to draw, and I'll stick with the 8 going along there. You need 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Better if you use a ruler. There we go. So I've made it 7 in that direction. And that would be the plan view. Yeah, use a ruler, but I'm not great on technology. Standard form for question 20. The aim is all about, for the first one, where's that number between 1 and 10 going to need the decimal point? And the answer is between the 4 and the 6. Have a think, how many times have I moved it? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's had to move 5 times. And each time it moves, it's been divided by 10. So we write it 10 to the power of 5, positive power, referring to large numbers. And therefore, this referring to small numbers. So 5037 is going to be to the right-hand side because the decimal point's going to go in the other direction. Feel free to draw it in. Examiners don't care. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where it now is in the normal number. And plug your gaps with zeros. And there we go. Question 21. Samples. So the spinner is spun, yada, yada, yada. At the end of the day, it asks for an estimate for the number of times it will land on A. If an experiment's been done 200 times and the experimental or relative frequency has been done, so it's 0.4, it's just a multiply. So 200 times 0.4 gives us an estimate of 80 times. As always, for estimating the mean, the first thing you need are the midpoints. So you might as well just crack on writing those down. They get you your first mark. Don't just blindly, in this case, add 5 to each one. You do sometimes get uneven groups. Not here, so no need to worry about that. Second job for your second mark, get them all multiplied. So on your calculator, get them all top times top and so on down. 140 for your next one. Next one I've got is 292.5, 577.5 and 195. Making sure you total them all up. Don't forget, it's never divide by number of rows, it's never divide by 5. There's 50 cities in this question, so it's a divide by 50. Outcomes 24.6 degrees Celsius. Okay to use decimals because it's temperature. So apparently the median temperature is 22.5 because the 22.5 is middle of the middle. What nonsense. As we know, if you look at cumulative frequency, 2, 8, 13, there's only 23 in the first 3 groups. So the median, the 25th and the 26th, is actually in the second group from the bottom. So is Saija correct? Give a reason for your answer. No, they're not correct. The median is in the group 25 to 30. And you don't have to overcomplicate any more than that. Qualities for question 23. So, asking to explain the mistakes. So let's look at each number in turn. So here we go. The first circle should be above -3. And the second circle, as we can see, it's an open circle. So the second one, it has an equals to. Second circle. Any phrase you want, filled in, coloured in, solid. That'll do for me. Part B, just solve it as normal. Add the 7 to both sides. And it's a calculator paper. So divide both sides by 5. You're going to get 4.6. So y must be smaller than 4.6. The smallest whole number below 4.6 is 4. Question 24. It's a hidden HCF LCM question, so you could find those the old school way. Because it's a calculator paper, I will. So let's do lowest common multiple, either mental arithmetic or on a calculator. It goes 60, 90, 120, 150. 24 times table goes 48, 72, 96, 120, and there we go. Obviously, you could have gone for it in terms of good old factor trees, HCF LCM that way, but I'll stick to it in terms of, because the numbers were quite small and reasonable and a calculator paper, I'm not going to worry about that. So we would have the same amount of each if we had 120 balloons and 120 pencils. Because the balloons are packed in 30s, the pencils in 24s, it wants to know the number of packs and boxes. So it's 4 and 5, respectively. On to question 25. The way I go about this one is it would take 30 hours to make all the plates using 4 machines. So in other words, we need 120 hours of work required to complete this job. And if we've got 6 hours required to complete the task, we're going to be needing 20 machines to do it. On to question 26. Riley travelled by car and by aeroplane. And as soon as you see miles per hour speed, always make a note of your old DST triangle, bound to help out and come into play somewhere. So let's look at the car. The information we're given for the car is that the distance is 143 miles. The speed is 55 miles per hour. So we can work out the time is distance divided by speed. That is 2.6 hours. Now notice it wants the answer in minutes. So 0.6 of an hour. Be careful, it's not 60 or anything like that. 0.6 of an hour means 0.6 times an hour. So 0.6 times 60 minutes means that's 2 hours 36 minutes. For the aeroplane, we have 5 hours and 50 minutes. So let's add 5 hours and 20 minutes. Let's add those together. 20 minutes plus 36. I was thinking ahead, wasn't that? 56 minutes. 5 hours and 2 hours gives us 7 hours. Whoops. It's already written the hours for me. And there we go for 26. Question 27, not the friendliest, but let's see how we go about it. So over here, it's giving you the formula connecting pressure, force and area. If we just change it up a bit, multiply both sides by area, divide both sides by pressure, you actually get the alternative, one of the alternatives being force divided by pressure gives you area. In other words, area, you've got a force of 504 newtons and we've got pressure of 3.5 newtons per centimetre squared, which gives us 144, which is the area. I know that's the top, but it's repeated on the bottom. So the area of one surface is 144, which means if you square root it, you get 12, but you don't need to worry about that. But that's if it was a volume question, and so on. So each surface is 144. A cube has 6 of these surfaces. 864 centimetres squared is the true surface area of the cube, which, as you can see, is definitely less than 900. As you see a straight line graph question, you've got to start thinking about the equation of a straight line graph. Now, the good news is the intercept is always a nice, easy mark. Where you've got to put more thought in is to finding a good triangle. A good triangle means whole numbers. Don't try and do any guessed fractions or making up random stuff. And to calculate the gradient, it's vertical change divided by horizontal change. So in this case, -2. And that's the number which goes next to x for question 28. Number 29, don't quit on it. The key to it is it's a hidden Pythagoras question. Why is that? Well, use logic. What do we need to work out the circumference of the circle? The circumference of the circle relies on knowing what the radius of the circle is. And if we just draw that little right angled triangle in there, I'll expand on it slightly. I know that's a rubbish drawing, but you get the gist. The distance all the way across is 3.5. So half the way across is 1.75. But also, same vertically. 3.5 there, halve it. We're wanting the radius. So as you can see, that's why it's a hidden Pythagoras question. So the radius is the square root of 1.75 squared added to 1.75 squared. I'm getting 2.4748 and so on. Don't need to be that accurate. Any more is daft. They're only wanting it to one decimal place, so you don't need to work in much more than 2. The circumference of the circle, though, is 2 times pi times this radius, which gives me the answer 15.55 again, and so on, because it wants the final answer. One decimal place, 15.6. Hope that helps. That's the end of this paper. See you on the next one.